like I said, the blueprint's out there, guys, and with $100 million to spend, under the salary cap, they can be really aggressive. I don't know if they have the assets to trade for somebody like a Tee Higgins, but that would be a great starting point for any team that is trying to get the best out of their young quarterback, a big, fast wide receiver who is a 1A wide receiver, by the way, even though he's not paid like one. That's somebody that I think the Bears should aggressively try to acquire if they can. I know the Giants are probably going to be looking at somebody like Tee Higgins, much like Jacksonville looked at Christian Kirk last year from the Arizona Cardinals. So that's how you start it. That's how you do it. And you got to make sure that he has the targets and the protection around him.
We've talked a lot about Tee Higgins and other possible trade targets. Danny kind of mapped out the different ways that we could go and get a number one wide receiver for Fields. What do you think about trading for DeAndre Hopkins or maybe Mike Evans if those situations allow that instead? Because Higgins, you have to give up a lot of draft capital and pay him. DeAndre Hopkins still a viable number one?
Nope, not in my eyes. I wouldn't want him on my team. He's not a guy who likes to practice. He's not a guy who likes to work. He's a very fast and talented player, makes a lot of great catches. But I don't necessarily know the leadership drive is there to be, to be really, truly great. I think he's athletically gifted. What I'm hearing out in Arizona is that, this thing didn't work out here. And one of the reasons, I'm sure, he's no Larry Fitzgerald, let's put it that way. Larry Fitzgerald had the work ethic, the leadership style, and everything that you want in a player. That's why he lasted so long in the desert out here. They tried to help replace him with A.J. Green, with DeAndre Hopkins, with AJ, what's his name? Oh God, I'm just trying.
Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown. So they tried, and it just didn't work. And I'm not a DeAndre Hopkins fan for a young quarterback. I'm just not. Tee Higgins could come in, and he's played with Joe Burrow for 3 years, and he knows exactly what a quarterback is supposed to be, and that will rub off on the quarterback. And I think Justin seems like a good enough kid that he would probably ask T if he were on his team, hey, how did Joe prepare? What did Joe do? What made Joe special? I'd like to try to recreate some of that stuff. So I want a young, budding wide receiver. I don't want an old wide receiver that's towards the end that has already won and been in Pro Bowls. I need a guy that really is hungry to be great, and I think that's who Tee Higgins is.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. They just obviously they're not trading the number one pick for it. They don't have their pick at the top of the second round, so maybe next year's number one is probably the best draft asset.
Listen, they're going to trade their number one pick. I mean,
yeah, you can trade down and get a lower pick and give that up too. That's right.
And they're going to get assets. They're going to get more. That's what I think is going to happen. That's what I would do. I mean, depending on what these quarterbacks look like. And by the way, there's nothing that says the Ryan Poles may not be blown away by one of these three quarterbacks at the top of the draft. And trade Justin Fields, although I think that's really unlikely, and I want to make sure that you understand that I'm saying unlikely. That still is a possibility. I don't know where it ranks on the possibility scale, but I do think that there's always a possibility that somebody can get smitten with one of these kids and say, you know what, this kid is more polished, he's more ready to go, and we think we can build around him. And this way, you wouldn't trade. You'd end up drafting the quarterback that you wanted, but in all likely scenarios, it seems like Chicago's going to trade that pick and acquire more assets, and that's how you then acquire somebody like a Tee Higgins.
We're talking to Boomer Esiason. He's at the Super Bowl. We're little peons here at Odyssey, and we're not. So he's talking to people and hearing things and all sorts of stuff. No combine, no workouts yet. But are you hearing anything about do you expect a consensus of top quarterback in this draft to materialize in the next 75 days or so?
I would say yes. I would still think like 70% of the people still believe that it's, Bryce Young right now. 70% of the, scouts, the coaches. I know that my buddy Frank in Carolina is evaluating these quarterbacks very closely. There's a very good chance that they may try to trade up in the draft or just sit there and wait to see which one of the three top guys actually falls to them. And maybe they'll take a guy that they can develop it. Because I think that Frank would love to do that. But at this point, it's too early in the process. The Senior Bowl just got done. The East-West Shrine game is done. So I think we're just starting the evaluation process. We're going to hear a lot over the next 2 months, and guys are going to be moving around. Some guys are going to fall in love with the size of C.J. Stroud. Some guys are going to be off of Bryce Young just because they don't believe he's big enough or strong enough. So we're going to see a lot of that movement, and it's going to be interesting to see who falls in love with one of these quarterbacks and what they're willing to give the Bears to go up and get them.